What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin,
and we have yet another album review for you, and one that I, again, feel is highly anticipated, especially amongst its fans. We are going to go over the latest offering from Defeated Sanity, Chronicles of Lunacy. This also comes out on the 22nd of November on Season of Mist Records. This band formed in 1993 in Germany, though this is only their 6th full-length overall. I've actually been a fan of this band for a while. I want to say I got into them around Chapters of Repugnance, and we actually went over the last one many moons ago, back again when we didn't know how to do like lighting or talking in front of a camera, all the shit that we barely know how to do now.
Right. We were way worse at this than we are now. We're still pretty bad at it, but we're better than we were, I think.
Maybe.
We
caught a little bit of them at MDF, and I mean, again, we were kind of like going between bands in there, so we didn't catch the entire set. But this band, I mean, it's technical, brutal death metal. These guys are pretty well known for just being absolutely insane in terms of both being just grossly brutal and insanely technical. And I think a good chunk of that goes to Lily Gruber, who is their drummer, also the drummer of Ingurgitating Oblivion. We're going to talk about him a lot.
Oh my God.
Everything I've ever heard with him on it, his drum work is insane and hard to describe. And trust me, I'm going to struggle describing it once again. But I was looking forward to this one just because it's been a while since I've actually jammed Defeated Sanity. Actually, it's been since the last one. But I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff that is very much in the same vein. Malignancy, Cryptopsy, Origin, maybe a little bit of Artificial Brain. And I mean, there's still some stuff that is rooted in like suffocation level, sort of like just battery. And well, I mean, it's all that again. But man, again, we're going to focus on Lily quite a bit on here.
Yes, that will be a big thing. I've got so many wonderful things to say in that regard. I haven't been a fan of this band for a real long time. Yeah, we went over the last record, and we again saw a little piece of them at MDF, and they were really good, by the way, but I'm sure you guys all know that as Defeated Sanity fans. Brutal death metal and I don't always necessarily get along. It depends on the mix of the record for me, so that's probably why I'm not a giant Defeated Sanity worshiper at this point. But I have to admit, I got a lot more than I bargained for. There are many things on this record that I simply just didn't see coming, and I really quite enjoyed them.
Now, this was mixed and mastered by Colin Marston, who's done a ton of amazing work both behind the mixing board and on stage. I mean, we just saw him in Gorguts at MDF too. And once again, this band is just absolutely insane. Their song structure is wild. Like, I mean, baseline, yeah, I could definitely compare this to like early Cryptopsy, especially those first two albums. But there's even a level beyond that in terms of like transitions, rhythms, time signatures, and just all out ferocity. Well, I can definitely break this down to like weird angular riffs and just relentless chugging and insane blast beats. There's still a lot more. Like, that is just surface level with this band. Once you really get to like dive into this band's sound, for me personally, I feel like I was thrown into like a trigonometry class and I just learned my multiplication tables. And I still feel kind of like stupid. Like, listening to this, like I've been surrounded by like just an absolutely insane performance on here, and there's only some of it I really get.
Yeah, I suck at complex math. In fact, I suck pretty much at basic math. In fact, math is not really my thing. This is complex math. This is music for nerds. Like, this record wants to fuck you up, but it wants to educate you at the same time. Some things I did not expect in this record at all, and I don't remember hearing them in the last record, and maybe because it was so long ago and I've forgotten, I don't know. But some cool things that are all over this record are these little like unexpected groovy pockets. There's a lot of work between the drum and the bass, and again, everybody in this band is grossly talented. I'm not gonna knock that at all. But like when I say groovy pockets in this sense, like there was a lot that reminded me of prog music. Like I got a lot of Gorguts out of this, and I got a lot of Atheist out of this. The Odor of Sanctity is actually a good example of that. That's where I first really noticed it. Just a really groovy bass section, and the whole like tone of that isn't as heavy as the rest of it. It, again, is more of like a proggy jam. It's really weird.
The production here is definitely very just kind of gritty and grimy. Like, honestly, it sounds like a lot of like 90s brutal death metal. Like you have that very, pingy kind of piccolo snare sound.
Which I'm
kind of hit or miss with it. I mean, I've warmed up to some of it. It just kind of depends on the level of pinginess. And honestly, Gruber's drum performance on here, I kind of forgot about it because it was like, wait, how did he hit everything all at once? This dude sprout an arm out of the middle of his chest just to hit that cymbal. The guitars are, a little bit more gritty and kind of muddy sounding, but they pack like this nasty, crunchy heft. The bass is surprisingly clear. And then on top you have Josh Welchman's like just nasty guttural vocals, which while he definitely has that very typical brutal death metal delivery, I kind of like his cadences and flows, like how he draws out certain growls, and then sometimes you get these short, rapid fire, sort of like just successions of grunts and snorts and pukes. It kind of works well with how rhythmically complex this album is.
I'm probably going to gush about Lily Gruber here because a lot of it, while it kind of makes sense to me as a drummer myself, I'm not used to seeing linear drum fills thrown into brutal death metal, and they're all over this record. The first song, Amputations Drang, I think that's how you say it. I'm not 100%, I don't care.
I'm pretty sure that's a made-up word.
I'm pretty sure it is too, but whatever. That was the first place I noticed really like linear, almost jazz fusion-y type of fills. Like, again, not something I saw coming. Another time where the drum work really impressed me was track 5. I'm not gonna say it again. I've been trying to say it for the last 15 minutes, and it's not happening. So I'm not gonna say the song title. If you can say it, great on you. Nick can probably say it, great on him.
Extrinsically enraged.
That.
One take.
Yep. Good for you. I'm so happy for you.
You sound happy.
Yeah, I'm happy. Anyway, the drum work in that song is probably one of the most entertaining moments that I found on this whole record, and that's a bold statement because this record is full of awesome drum moments. But the stutters in that drum beat, they're all over the place. They're in the blasts, they're in the variances of the breakdown. It's just everything has a little hitch on it and a little catch on it to make each one of those sections unique, and it blew my mind.
Surprisingly, as chaotic as this sounds, it's weird because my ears started to kind of pick up on it in terms of what they do. Like, for anyone that's not listened to music like this would probably sound like absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Like, you taught, carnivorous insects to play music after, loading them with, weird hormones and shit. I don't know. That might be a sci-fi theme that's on here. But when this clicks, you start realizing all the weird, clever, songwriting tropes they use.
Yeah.
Like transitions. Transitions, I think, on here are fascinating because they like to draw them out. Instead of doing a quick turnover or anything like that, it's a turnover with a stuttered accent and then maybe a couple of cymbal runs. Mm-hmm. Then they'll revisit that maybe and kind of rework it. All right, let's change that pattern around. Maybe do it in reverse. Maybe throw in a couple of tom accents that weren't there before. And that's frequent. And even when it comes down to groove-laden breakdowns, which there's tons of groove on here. Temporal Disintegration in particular, that's just got chug after chug. And they're slam breakdowns, except this isn't Ooga Booga Slam. This slam has an engineering degree or something.
Yeah.
The way they like to throw in these off-time accents or extra stutters in these breakdowns and grooves, it kind of makes them stick out a little bit more. They don't sound like your stereotypical, just brutal death metal breakdowns.
It's a game of guess who, but you never figure out who.
But with all that going on, they still manage to make it stand out. My fear going into this was all right, this is going to be a technical blitz where a lot of the stuff ends up kind of sounding the same. And I'll be fair, some of their earlier albums, I think, are not quite as good. They're technical, they're brutal, but nothing really stands out. Here, there's just enough moments on here where they let stuff breathe just a bit to where it really does stick.
Well, and there's a bunch of different dynamics. Yes, the tropes of brutal death metal are definitely in here. There's definitely blasts. There's definitely crazy crawling riffs and runs and such. There's definite breakdowns. This record is heavier than balls. But again, it's these little off-time moments or these little jazz fusion-y moments. They happen all over the record, but it's unique. It's like Willy Wonka said, little surprises around every corner, but nothing dangerous. And that's kind of what's going on here.
I'm pretty sure this album would kill kids like Willy Wonka. I don't think any of those kids actually survived. One of my personal favorites on here is Condemned to Vascular Famine. Mm-hmm. That one really does stand out from the rest because, well, it's the longest track, but in terms of the elements that they include in here, this is the one that probably has the most progressive flourishes to it. It opens up with this kind of droning synth and then one of the craziest drum patterns I think I've heard, and then that's kind of turned into like a riff pattern and a bass pattern on it, and it's bonkers. Like, I don't know what Lily does, but Lily does it really well.
The drum pattern on the beginning of that, while it's not that beat, it reminds me a lot of Spaghetti Western from Primus. That opening drum beat, it's very similar in nature, at least in its presentation. Again, this is obviously a more technical drum beat, but it's got that kind of vibe to it. And it's a very unique setup. There's no other time on this record where you get an opening drum piece or performance. Like, usually it's just straight off to the races. But, like, this is really cool, and there's a bunch of really cool things that happen in that song.
Off-time rhythms, but you still get, like, the blasty, ferocious sections in there. But I like the fact that they are drawn out a little bit. And it's not just like drawing out the crazy transitions. They're drawing out the riffs a little bit more so they kind of actually stay with you. There's some really cool tapping harmonies on there. Honestly, probably one of the biggest spots of melody on here. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, this is going to be a pleasant listen for people that don't like insanely brutal technical death metal. But you're going to notice that there's like a little bit of a melodic hook in that song. And that song in particular does kind of stand out for having just like a touch more melody. Temporal Disintegration also stands out for kind of those reasons too. But honestly, I think it stands out more for just being riffier than hell. Like, the breakdown sections on that song in particular, especially at the end, probably one of the slowest, grimiest moments. There's even like this weird kind of like atonal lead melody on top of the just flat out disgusting chugs. But just when you think it's going to end that way, it kind of drops out, and then all of a sudden this weird drum and bass and synth groove pops up, and it kind of swells in and then swells out as a weird exclamation point on a weird song. It kind of just comes out of nowhere. Like, I did not expect to hear that at all. Like, that it was just like this weird kind of what the fuck moment, but it worked.
Yeah, not a lot of atmosphere on this record. There is a little bit more of sampled atmosphere. It happens in the end of Condemned to Vascular Famine, leading into Heredity Violated, where it's just kind of like this weird droning thing going on, and there's some voices. I'm not real sure what's happening, but like, it's there. It's something added that, again, I'm not used to hearing in brutal death metal, at least not in that fashion. Like, it's a little bit spacey and kind of creepy. Something I would find more in like an atmospheric black metal album.
Honestly, the way it fades out and then Heredity Violated fades in underneath that, I think it's like kind of a cool transitional atmosphere thing they do in here. One thing that I kind of pulled from this, and, using this word always feels weird, especially when it comes down to like more brutal music. This might be one of their more accessible albums. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, it's poppy and bright, there's clean vocals and like acoustic there's none of that shit. But in terms of like their more recent offerings, the last one that I really got into was Passages into Deformity. I thought that was a real standout, and it was hooky, but it was still 100% Defeated Sanity sound. Like, it was still angular and twisted and brutal as hell. But this one kind of shares some commonalities with it in terms of like, yeah, this is a blunderbuss of just absolutely insanely technical music. But again, when you break down like some of the more like technical riffs on here, there's some like legit catchy stuff on here.
As far as any negatives are concerned, like, this is a pretty awesome album. One thing I will say is that still for me, I get picky with mixes. And like, as this record goes on, once the ear acclimates to the overall tone of everything, it's not that bad. But when it starts, it's really muddy. The guitars especially are really muddy, and I had a rough time at first picking out riffing patterns. The snare is a little pingy, but the drum performance is so goddamn awesome that I can't really knock it. So, like, that's pretty much a minor gripe at this point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I kind of got used to the production. Again, it's a very 90s style mix. Like, this is the same kind of mix I've heard on, like, Gorgasm albums.
Yeah.
And, I kind of got used to it. Yeah, the snare can get a little pingy, but I've heard way pingier snares.
I have too. I've heard way worse.
So I'm not even going to knock it. Plus, the fact that I was so just lost in what, Gruber was doing on drums. The pingy snare became like, oh yeah, I can kind of hear it there for a second. I don't care. Look at that fucking gnarly shit he's doing.
Yep.
It is just an absolutely intense listen from start to finish. So yeah, like, it's, like one you really have to pay attention to really kind of pick up on like some of the nuances. But at the same time, I would say if you're just listening to this for just an absolute beat down musically, you're going to get that too. So honestly, overall, I'm gonna give this 4 stars. I'm like really impressed with this one. And I've been impressed with, again, like past works, but I feel like they're kind of hit or miss with me. Like sometimes Defeated Sanity is just on it, and you get that perfect blend of technicality and just outright death metal savagery. And I feel like that is this right here. Like this has a great balance of like intricate technical riffs. The transitions are nuts, especially again how they like to draw them out. And in terms of like contemporary song structure, when you do get down to those moments, they're really solid. Mm-hmm. But they like to just continuously mess with you in terms of rhythm. And dude, Gruber's performance on here is absolutely insane.
Yep.
Like there needs to be a case study on this gentleman as to whether or not he can sprout arms like Kali or something like that. And just like, yeah, that's my secret. I grow extra arms. And yeah, you can't. Baseline, if you're a big fan of like Origin, Malignancy, Cryptopsy, stuff like that, strongly urge you to check this out. This is just an absolutely nuts listen, but honestly, it's really good.
I'm between a 3.5 and a 4, and while I can't do that for this channel, I can actually justify a 4 more so than I can justify a 3.5, so I'm also at 4. This record is again entertaining in ways I didn't think it would be. Granted, once again, I'm not the world's biggest Defeated Sanity fan, but I found things in here that I simply just did not expect. The interplay between the drum and the bass is insane. Once again, both grossly talented musicians. Lily Gruber, I tell you what, man, great job. I agree with the arms thing. I know that most people only have 2 arms and 2 feet, but I swear to God you have more, because a lot of this doesn't make any sense in that capacity.
He's the human Gruberpede. Except without the ass-to-mouth stuff.
Nonetheless, this record is still fiercely technical and insanely brutal. When these guys get heavy, they really get down to it. I mean, it just... Ugh. The non-stop breakdowns on temporal disintegration, man, are just nuts. While the mix threw me off a little bit in the beginning, it was something I got used to, and that's really cool. A lot of dynamic here that I wasn't expecting either. Way more elements than what I was expecting. Like, again, the transitions are solid, and the way that they present those transitions and use them to actually make the song flow along to where you're not confused about shit. It's technical. This is not probably for the novice listener, but if you're a fan of this band, I think you're really going to dig this. And once again, if you like things like early Cryptopsy and Suffocation, but oddly enough, also things like Death and Gorguts and Atheist, you're probably going to find a little bit of those moments in there as well. Regardless, I'd say check it out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also now have memberships. They were only 99 cents, and we are going to start doing our members only live stream, which is our perk, and I think we're gonna do it probably Thanksgiving night, like after everyone's like digesting like a whole turkey and a fuck ton of mashed potatoes. Mm-hmm. That's when we're gonna do it, when you're all sleepy, I guess. Or drunk. I don't know how you celebrate.
I mean, because that way we can be really stupid, much like we normally are, but you won't catch on as easy, so we thought ahead.
Yeah. And, of course, with the stupid thing are emojis, which I'll probably add something else stupid here soon because I get bored and add stupid things. Anyway, this is the new way to support the channel more directly. We're trying to get away from Patreon, StreamYard getting more expensive, yada, yada, yada. If you would like to help us out, there is a join button down below for the memberships, and we also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats and such, too. So that is linked down below in the description.
And we talk about things like supporting us and joining and whatnot. You guys have already shown us a tremendous amount of support. I can't believe that this channel is as big as it is, and it continues to grow. We're getting pretty damn close here to 20,000 subscribers, which is insane. I'm sure that we will be doing a giveaway as we compile some random shit from around the house that we think you might really enjoy. Anyway, all the stuff we do here at Thralls of Metal, album reviews, discography rankings, a ton of stuff, live streams, you know the deal. You've been here long enough. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. We do this all for you guys. We are grateful.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming in the future. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.